Well, thank you very much for staying with us. Time now for the news review. We get into the papers and find out what they have to share with us this morning. And joining us to dilate on them, we have Liz Hayford-Nassari, media consultant. Liz, a very good morning to you.
Good morning.
You're looking
and
very
how
official.
Are you this morning?
I'm very well. Under the circumstances, I'm well. I thank God for life, for strength, for health. Yesterday was a rather tiring day. I had to stick and stay and deal with the mid-year budget review, on which I have my own myriad thoughts. And then let's just say it was a very long day, but worth it as I had interactions on the mid-year budget review. Did you follow a lot of it?
No, parts of it, yes, but I had work to do. So my mind was based on what I was doing and not on what I was hearing.
So just a summary off the top of my head, the things that come to mind. Newly constructed roads, the Tema motorway extension, for example, will be tolled. So we're going back to the tolling system. I guess finally there's some listening going on as far as government is concerned. But when it comes to our dynamics as a country, so many things are involved. In fact, the minority side, reflecting on what was delivered yesterday, said it was empty and that there was not much to the budget statement that was put out there. But in terms of our GDP growth, for example, so let me just get to that page. The projection was 5.8%. Now it's been revised to 3.7%. Non-oil GDP growth was projected to be 5.9%. It has been slashed down to 4.3%. That's a 1.6 percentage point decrement. Inflation, 8%. That was the projection. Of course, we know where we are now, 29.8%. But according to this chart, 28.5%. The fiscal deficit, 7.4%. Currently 6.6%. And the primary surplus, 0.1%, standing now at 0.4%. And of course, we know in terms of our gross international reserves, we have just about 3 months to contend with in terms of import cover. Other items, maybe in my interactions with some of the economists, apart from the 393 billion Ghana cedis that we owe in terms of our debt stock, we're also looking at 25 billion arrears, in arrears locally. We owe WAEC, we owe contractors, we owe, there's the school feeding program and all of that. So many things to digest. But listening to the finance minister yesterday, what were your key takeaways?
Did I get any? Apart from looking at exports and making sure that we are secure when it comes to grains, that was one. Again, when he spoke about roads, I have experienced some of the roads, so I think that that is another one. But on the whole, I really wasn't expecting something new, because he did say that he was making a statement. He wasn't reviewing the budget. It wasn't a motion that he was putting on the floor of the House. It was a statement. And when you put a statement, there's nothing to debate. The members of parliament can just contribute to the statement that he has made. There's nothing really to debate. There's no monies that they're going to look out so that there's a reappropriation of the Appropriation Act. There's no supplementary budget to look at. So I really wasn't expecting much, and that probably is why I really didn't pay attention. So what we have as a budget is what we're still working with.
Were you impressed, though, by everything? For me, one of my core problems, I don't know why every time we have to deliver a budget, and to you, Ghana4, I don't know what you think, but we have to sit on tenterhooks and wait, and 8 o'clock or 10 o'clock becomes so many hours. It threw a spanner in my own, works, because as a presenter, I also had other things to move on and do. And I planned my time around 10 o'clock and scheduled other meetings. Guess what? I had to wait here till after 1 o'clock, close to 2 o'clock, before the budget statement started being read. Some of these, I don't know, they smack of, sometimes these are problems that I feel, because you don't go to other jurisdictions and see this. In other jurisdictions, an MP shows up late in Parliament and resigns, but here, I don't know. I don't know what your take is on that.
That for me is one of the major problems that shifted my attention, because like you, I programmed other things to do. And as the time approached, I can't reschedule, because when you make appointments with people, they are bound to be waiting for you and you don't keep them waiting. So my question as we were waiting was, so who pays for this time? Because time is money. And if I'm sitting and doing nothing when I have 101 other things to do, who is going to pay for that time? So I got up and started doing what I had to do. And that for me is very worrying. And it's not only yesterday that it happened. I've been to functions where they tell me the function will start at 10. I get there at 9:45, and 10:30, maybe only 2 or 3 people have come. And for me, it's very irritating. And I try hard to say that I will be late, but I can't be late. It's not something that I've grown up with. So I always keep the time. That is something that we lack here in Ghana. We don't keep the time. We are always wasting time, and time is money.
Time indeed is money. Hopefully someday we'll wake up to the fact that it's also part of a draw on our development. But let's get into some details of the budget review. It's been described as not inspiring by the minority. Pictured here in the Daily Graphic on page 13, Dr. Cassie Latoforsen, ranking member of the Finance Committee of Parliament. Let's get into that very quickly. Page 13, where are you? Where are you? Where are you? There you are. Okay, so the mid-year budget review was not candid and truthful to Ghanaians about the economic challenges facing the country, the minority in Parliament has said. According to them, the country was in serious economic crisis to the extent that its debt was unsustainable. And mind you, it is important when we talk about unsustainable debt, because that will also determine the dynamics, how we play the game with the IMF. We need to bring our debt to sustainable levels. But the Minister of Finance, Ken Ofori-Atta, failed to speak the truth to encourage Ghanaians to buy into the problems confronting the nation. That's according to the minority. According to him, I am disappointed in the statement by the minister. I think if the country is in crisis to the extent that your debt is unsustainable, then when you appear before Parliament, first you have to speak the truth to get the public buy-in, he said. Now, addressing the press shortly after Mr. Ofori-Atta had presented the mid-year budget review to Parliament yesterday, Dr. Forsen, flanked by some members of his caucus, said, everything is not working. Yet the minister responsible for finance appeared before us and said nothing. He failed to address the very concerns of ordinary Ghanaians. They go on to talk about mounting debt, fiscal deficit, the GDP growth, printing of currency. And I want to end on the printing of currency because it's a point that Isaac Adongo also made. Dr. Forsen accused the government of encouraging the Bank of Ghana to print currency totaling 22 billion Ghana cedis without parliamentary approval. In fact, he also adds, if you listen to him, 48 million Ghana cedis. According to him, the currency notes were printed between January and June 2022. And some details I noted down. According to Isaac Adongo, things to note. The Central Bank Act, stipulates that the central bank cannot loan more than 5% of the previous year's revenue to government. That's the first point. And secondly, even when that is going to be done, a printing of money to shore up, the economy, because that also has its ripple effect on the economy, new spending, and that can also lead to different measures, inflation and all. It must receive parliamentary approval, but that was not done. And Isaac Adongo at a point made mention of the fact that, and I see one of the papers capturing it, that Ken Ofori-Atta could be digging his own grave into prison. Your quick thoughts on this?
Digging his own grave into
prison in future.
I hope not. But my quick take, I don't think that I really have considered all those things. But when you have the act that states exactly what should be done, then I think it behoves on the Bank of Ghana, even when you're being given directives that is outside the act, because your answer to the act and the constitution. If you're doing things that are um, contrary to what your mandate is, then you must be questioning yourself as either the governor or the bank or whatever, to what you are getting yourself into. And so, like you said, printing money, it has rippling effects on our economy. Our debt insustainability is something that we really need to look at. We have not, and like Dr. Forsyth said, the minister did not speak to how we were going to sustain ourselves or get ourselves out of the debt that we have dug ourselves into. And so that, again, is a worrying factor for me, because if your economy should rebound, then you should be able to take steps to make sure that you're not sinking deeper in debt and that you're being able to be more efficient and more prudent in your spending.
Well, he did say, Liz, that they were going to stick to the appropriations for 2022, and so they weren't going to spend more. But of course, when you look at the reprinting of money, the 22 billion involved, then it means that maybe on paper we're not spending, but eventually we're going to spend.
Yes, indirectly we are spending. If you're looking at the appropriation, and if you're looking at the appropriation of what was presented in November, then we are not supposed to spend any more money. We are only supposed to be able to plug loopholes and collect the revenues so that we can sustain ourselves, and in sustaining ourselves, pay the debts that we owe. But if we are not able to keep that, because the percentages, I think, for debt sustainability came down, if we are not able to do that, then we are still in the rut. And so it will take us a longer time to get out of where we are. We're still going to be struggling. We're still going to be in a crisis situation. And so what are the steps that we're taking to get us out of the crisis that we are in currently? I didn't hear anything towards that. And that probably is why Dr. Forsyth said that it was empty and things fall apart.
Well, for me, two things, just to wrap on the economy, two things that I was looking forward to that I didn't see. Our savings. And when I talk about savings, so we've slashed salaries, executive salaries by 30%. How much has been accrued from there? We have cut down, fuel disbursement to certain categories of people by 50%. How much has been accrued from there? We've cut down on the travel of some members of the executive and government, business by extension. How much has been accrued from that? People were waiting to see those so that we'll be able to quantify and say that, look, this is how much we are saving as a country. And this is what, this means to us in terms of tightening our belts and all of that. That did not have it happen. And that was disappointing, not just for me, but for other economists and the tax people and others who are watching us. The other bit has to do with the e-levy, crucial. As of now, we're expecting to see what the impact has been of the e-levy. How much have we got secured from it? And it's even more of a concern because there had been a report, earlier that hinted at the fact that what we were accruing from the e-levy was just a pittance, a drop in a bucket compared to what we were expecting. Then Gabi Otredako also posted something about raking in 10%, for which reason likely we would go to the IMF and all of that. If those turn out to be true, then I feel the finance minister did for us a very great disservice by not letting us know what the picture is. The president of Gov't, Dr. Joseph Obeng, was mentioning yesterday that maybe we should slash it to 0.5%. All of these play into what people should know and the decisions moving forward. Whether conveniently or otherwise, the finance minister disregarded these 2 points, our savings and the e-levy. Your quick thoughts on that?
And my concern with that is that the finance minister himself know what we are getting from the e-levy.
He ought to know. I mean, the GRA people have been on our shows, but they don't have the permission to put it out. So the central bank, in consonance with the finance minister, are those who can put it out. Not some ordinary person working at the GRA. So he was expected to do that.
Yes, and he ought to know, but have they done their homework well? There's a lot of inefficiencies in the system. So then you ask questions. Instead of putting out something and coming back to change it, get it properly done. So he owes us an explanation as to why there was nothing said on the e-levy, because that is an area that everybody thought, or we were made to think, that it would help us recover from all the crises and menaces that we were experiencing and going through. So if nothing was said on that, everybody will question, because if you put e-levy, at least give us a review of how e-levy is doing. And if nothing of that is said, then that's why I'll question if he has anything to say on it, that if he didn't say it, then he probably hasn't done his homework well. So if he had done his homework well, he probably would have spoken to it.
Well, let's get some other stories in the coup plotters trial. Court orders suspects to open defense. That story as well on page 13. Then there's Bank of Ghana maintains policy rate at 19%. Story on pages 16 and 17. Just a very quick look at that. And the Bank of Ghana has maintained its policy rate at 19%. The Monetary Policy Committee of the Bank of Ghana, of course, for the first time since November last year, maintained the policy rate at 19%. The governor and the Bank of Ghana and chairman of the MPC, Dr. Ernest Addison, who announced the decision on the policy rate at a press conference in Accra yesterday, said the committee arrived at the decision due to current inflationary trends, which rate of increase had begun to see a deceleration. But just a quick look at the number crunch. 200 billion. What does that refer to? Total assets of banks grew by 22.8% on a year-on-year basis to 200 billion at the end of last month. Media budget review, government vows quicker turnaround. Completed Accra-Tema motorway extensions to be tolled, so you will be paying tolls soon. Macroeconomic targets revised downwards. And we can also make mention of the fact that he said while it wouldn't be, easy, the turnaround of the economy, he is hoping that within 2.5 years, which some economists have said is too optimistic, but I mean, a step in the right direction anyway, to turn around the economy. Only time will tell what happens in that respect. Finally, with the Daily Graphic, over 1,800 fleet terrorist attacks in Burkina Faso to Ghana. The concern that has been raised about this has to do with the fact that for all those genuine people who may be fleeing attacks in neighboring countries, there could be terrorists in there. People from terrorist cells, networks who could infiltrate, and experts have said, analysts have said that security forces don't have the real capacity to sift through and pick out terrorist elements, which could mean that as we accommodate these refugees, we could also be attracting terrorists. Your final take on that?
And that is very worrying and it's scary, but we don't have the ability to, and because of a few people, we can't turn thousands away. But again, we need to be able to, when they come in, monitor them and make sure that we keep them in enclosed spaces. What we do normally is when refugees come in, after a while, when they've gone through all the medical checks and things like that, they are able to walk around freely in our country. If we are going to be able to tell whether we have terrorists amongst them or not, then we need to keep them in enclosed spaces. And in those spaces, we need to have high security so that we don't have them misbehaving, we don't have them infiltrating our communities. We don't have them mixing up with our people, so that you have those people in that space, then you'd be able to monitor and keep them and see how they behave. But if we leave them to freely walk in our country like we always do, then it's a security threat to all of us. And definitely, we would definitely have people coming in, because if they're causing it in Burkina Faso and the people are coming in and they come with them, how are we going to tell? And that is, for me, is worrying. But then there should be security, high alert in those border areas, so that our security would know that these are some of the things that they would have to be dealing with.
Let's contemplate some other stories now.
I was going to talk about the roads and the tolling.
Well, quickly on that.
When the tolls were removed, some of us were asking questions, because if you were tolling a road and you've stopped tolling it, then the road should be still be in very good condition. But we toll roads that are not anything to write home about. Having traveled recently, Eastern Volta, Oti regions, I would say that some of the roads are very good. I was surprised that I traveled from Ho to Dambai on very good road. But then from Pando,
did you use the Sokode route?
Yes.
Okay.
But coming back, we used Pando to Esikuma, and that is a terrible road. And I hear that for most people who are coming from the Oti region to Accra, that is the route they use. But that is a terrible road. From Koforidia to Somenya, there is a road that you can use, but that again is a terrible road. So some of the roads are good, but some of the roads are so terrible that by the time you finish your journey, your body itself is complaining. So yes, some work has been done, but I think more needs to be done. And if we really want to get on with our roads and make sure that our roads are proper, the best thing to do is toll the roads. But when we toll the roads, let's use the money to maintain the roads and to make sure that other roads are constructed. You don't know what the road tolls, the money collected from road tolls are used for. And yet you're always paying tolls. And some people are thinking that because it was given to private hands had their own way of taking their own money. They won't give you the proper receipts when you paid for a toll, all kinds of things. We need to do our things and do our things properly. These are some of the inefficiencies in the system that we must be looking at.
The Ghanaian Times newspaper, major issues we've already looked at, but I'll just walk you through the headlines. Finance Minister says in 2022 budget review, economy to rebound in 2.5 years. And government lays foundation for national growth enhanced development program to be basis for negotiating with the IMF. Free SHS TVET programs not under review. Interesting, because we heard from, is it the Director General of the Ghana Education Service, smacking of, parents are going to have to pay something. And my interactions with a lot of economists, they say, look, we have to take a look at it, because while it may not be the most expensive of government's flagship programs, it's also a drain that we ought to look at and see how we can bring in other aspects to cushion the economy. Because guess what? What's the economy? It's not just what government is handling. In the end, it is us. And we are all involved. And if it goes bust, we suffer along with it. There's also budget review.
I think that it's important for us to always review our policy programs, especially when you know that when you implement a policy, you have some teething problems. So you have to review to be able to make sure that those teething problems are eradicated and that you are being more efficient in the way you're rolling out your policy. You're not just rolling out your policy because you want it rolled out. It's because you want the students educated. It's because you want a brighter future for the children of Ghana. So if you're not getting that in the end, then the question should be, why are we not getting what we hope to get? And so if you're not reviewing, then what is it? It's not only about the money, it's about the quality of education that we are getting. It's not just about children in school, it's about the products that we are getting when they've come through school.
Then there's budget review will not offer respite for economic hardship, minority insists. In other stories, WHO declares monkeypox outbreak a global public health emergency, and Ghana has recorded some 34 cases as of the last time we heard from Dr. Patrick Kumabwaje, who is Director General of the Ghana Health Service. But two quick stories I want to run by you, and then we'll say bye-bye to the Ghanaian Times newspaper. Policeman granted 100,000 Ghana cedi bail for impersonating IGP and CID boss. So a policeman who allegedly impersonated the Inspector General of Police, Dr. George Ekufu-Dampare, and Director General of the CID, Commissioner of Police, Ken Yeboah, has been granted 100,000 Ghana cedi bail by the Circuit Court in Accra. General Corporal Akono Opoku, who was charged on 2 counts of attempting to commit crime and defrauding by false pretense, pleaded not guilty. The court, presided over by Mrs. Adelaide Abui Kede, ordered him to produce two sureties. Now, the court ordered prosecution to file and serve all disclosures and witness statements within 31 days. But just to sum it up, the prosecution said on October 11, 2021, the complainant petitioned the Director General of CID to investigate and arrest Nalia for stealing $40,000 from his room on August 18, 2021. Chief Inspector Amwa said on August 19, the complainant received text messages and phone calls on his Vodafone and MTN contact numbers from an unknown Airtel Tigo number, and the persons posed as the IGP and the Director General of the CID. That's the first story. Second one, Ghanaian killed in suspected terrorist attack in Burkina Faso. A Ghanaian was among two civilians who were killed in recent suspected insurgency in neighboring Burkina Faso last week. The Ghanaian, a citizen of the Binduri district in the Upper East region, only identified as Akama, has left behind 3 wives and 13 children. The family of the late Akama were among 1,183 Burkinabes who fled Burkina Faso in the wake of the terrorist attack to seek refuge in Ghana. Quick reactions to these two stories?
With the first story, I don't know if I'm going to react because my question is, he's been granted bail. It doesn't mean that the case is over. So if the case is still in court, then I don't want to be caught prejudicing that whatever the outcome will be. So I would hold my thoughts on that one. If he's been granted bail, it's in the court's purview to do so. So I don't have much to say about that, unless the case has been completed and whether he's been interdicted, removed, jailed, whatever. So let me put a hold on that one. With the Ghanaian killed, we know that between Ghana and Burkina Faso, even the border, we do a lot of business on the borders. I don't know whether Ankama went there to work or whether he went there to trade, whatever he went there to do. It's unfortunate he was caught in this terrorist attack. But then again, it raises concerns for us because this is just a border town that we are talking about. I'm sure there are more Ghanaians in Burkina Faso and there are a lot of Burkinabes in Ghana because it's just the border, and sometimes it's just the same people who a border has been put there by some foreigners, and therefore we are split into different countries. So again, security has to be on high alert, especially in our border regions to the north. And we need to be careful, and therefore I think that Ghanaians also have to be advised to be circumspect in when they're traveling outside and where they're going and what they're doing, especially if it's on the border between Ghana and Burkina Faso, Ghana, Togo, Ghana, Cote d'Ivoire. We know that there have been terrorist attacks in some of these areas, so we need to be careful and we need to get our people to be security conscious in their movements and in their dealings.
Let's take a look at some stories to wrap up the conversation this morning, Liz. So I'm going to put them all together and then you can react to them. I'll start with the Daily Guide newspaper. The headlines: road tolls return, coup plotters ordered to open defense. But let me focus on NAPCO ends in September. There's also Mills's bust angers minority. I don't know whether you followed that. Maybe if later you want to chip in, you can do that. But NAPCO ends in September, and government's flagship Nation Builders Corps program is to end by September 1, 2022, after 4 years of implementation. Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta announced this during the presentation of the mid-year budget review in Parliament yesterday. He said the program during its implementation period engaged 100,000 young graduates for the world of work, with the government spending approximately 2.2 billion Ghana cedis. That's the first story. Next one, Agenda 111, work ongoing at 87 sites. That's according to Finance Minister. Of course, it has to do with hospitals, and textbooks distribution to schools underway. Reverend Intim Fodjo says so, Deputy Education Minister. And that is in the Finder newspaper. The final bit, government still needs 8 billion Ghana cedis to fix financial sector. And so what this means basically is that the banking sector cleanup and all of that, we still have a long way to go. The 22 billion we've spent, there's still more coming. An extra 8 billion Ghana cedis needed. That is in the graphic business. Quick reactions, and we shall wrap it up.
For the banking sector, I've always wondered why we don't prop up the banks rather than close them down. Because if my memory serves me right, I think that we needed 9 billion to ensure that we sustain the banks. And these are local banks that are all being closed down, not the foreign banks that we have. So if we can sustain our banks and make sure that they turn around and pay back what has been used to prop them, why don't we do that? Why are we closing down our banks and allowing the foreign banks to be the banks that are currently performing well and profitably?
We have the UniCredit albatross round our neck after the High Court's ruling. Let's not forget that.
Yeah. So then again, you ask yourself questions, and it goes back to policy, and it goes back to how we are rolling out our policies and how we are trying to help ourselves as Ghanaians. If we're not building our banks, then why are we looking at other banks and making sure that the other banks function? Why aren't we trying to make Ghanaians become prominent in the banking sector and do well?
Right.
That for me is a question. And we keep spending more money in making sure that we are cleaning up the sector and end up closing our local banks and allowing foreign banks to operate. Meanwhile, if we had propped up our local banks, we would have spent less.
Okay.
So then it's a question, it's a dicey question for me as to what to do when it comes to situations like that. Is it that we don't look at it properly, or there are other sinister motives as to who should be able to work in the banking sector in Ghana? And then
NAPCO is coming to an end September 1st. We've spent 2.2 billion Ghana cedis. Maybe we can wrap on that point.
And we haven't heard anything about the policy for NAPCO. So if it's coming to an end, is it because the IMF thinks that we should end it? Because then it creates a situation of unemployment for us as a people. Because if 100,000 people were employed in 4 years and you stop it, then it means that the new graduates are not getting employment. And so what happens to them? So it increases our level of unemployment. Is it that we don't have money to be able to sustain it? If we don't, why don't we have? And that's why I think that it's always important to review our policies.
Right.
If we don't review our policies, then we get to a head and then you throw your hands up in the air, you leave the children to walk the streets, they get more frustrated, and then you see all kinds of criminal activities rising because the children are frustrated, they need to get money to live. Some of them have struggled through school on their own, not being supported by anybody, and they've come out and they can't find jobs and they can't find employment. Again, it will lead to the leaving of our graduates from the country to seek greener pastures. Because if you can't get employed here and there are jobs elsewhere that you can go and do, that probably we look on as demeaning because you won't do it in your country, then definitely will get your children leaving, and the drain will continue.
Right.
Because go out where they can get jobs, where they can earn something, where they can earn a living. And then that is what we'll see happening. So for me, we really need to...
A lot has to be done, doesn't it?
Exactly.
Right.
And reconsider if it's with the children that are coming out that we are concerned about. Now, let me just say one thing shortly about
very quickly, Liz, we've run out of time. Very quickly on that.
Sorry, just about the bus. I just wanted to say that in our parlance, we say that Amanze Wansane. And if we are looking at promoting tourism and we are not looking at our culture and traditions, then there's a lot of things that we need to be getting right. And again, for me, if we are not united in the things we do as a people, then we definitely will fall. Because if you're not united, you won't stand. So we should get united and we should stand. And we should make sure that if we are promoting tourism, our culture and our traditions is who we are. That's what makes us who we are. And we should be looking at that.
Thank you so much for your reflections on all of these matters. I just had a feeling right before you go on a lighter note that looking at the shade of blue, the different shades of blue you're rocking this morning, my royal blue frames would have looked very good on you this morning. Maybe I'll
They're
consider getting you
beautiful,
one.
though. I've been admiring them, but I haven't said anything.
Thank you so much, Liz. Media
you.
consultant Liz Hayfron Asari joined us for the news review. And do have a good day. Up next, we serve you sports. Do stay.